Sound filled the air. Streaks of fire cut across the sky, hundreds of objects plummeting through the atmosphere with controlled precision. "Drop pods," whispered Major Taiho in awe. "I've only seen them in historical documents." The pods landed, in perfect formation around the colony perimeter, forming a protective ring. With synchronized hisses, they opened to reveal soldiers in advanced powered armor. The soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, immediately engaging the approaching Crack's forces. Weapons fire unlike anything Jiwoo had seen before erupted from their rifles. Not the usual energy beams, but something that made Crack's armor bubble and melt on contact. The alien invaders fell back in confusion as their advance suddenly halted. One pod landed nearby. Its occupant stepped out and moved toward Jiwoo with purpose. Unlike the others, this soldier removed their helmet, revealing a human woman with short black hair and determined eyes. "Commander Jiwoo Park?" the woman asked, offering a formal salute. "I'm Colonel Do-hee Kang, 2nd Orbital Infantry Division. United Earth Forces, we received your distress call." Jiwoo stared in disbelief, struggling to process what was happening. The mysterious ships, these advanced soldiers, a human officer standing before her. "Earth," she finally managed to say. "Earth came." Colonel Do-hee nodded, a slight smile forming on her lips. "We've been waiting for someone to ask." In the distance, the sound of battle changed. The Crack's forces that had seemed unstoppable just minutes ago were now in retreat. Above, the sky flashed with the light of ship-to-ship combat as Earth's fleet tore through the Crack's armada. "But how?" Jiwoo asked. "The Concord said Earth had no significant space forces." "The Concord," Colonel Do-hee replied, checking her weapon, "was wrong about many things. Now let's secure your colony. We have a lot to talk about." The morning sun shone through the newly installed windows of Nova Centauri's administrative center. 2 weeks had passed since the Crack's fleet had been driven away. The colony was healing. Commander Jiwoo Park watched from the conference room as repair crews worked in the streets below. Earth engineers helped rebuild damaged buildings while medical teams treated the injured. In orbit, Earth vessels maintained a protective formation around the planet. "It's amazing how quickly things can change," she said softly. Admiral Sung-ho Kim stood beside her, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. At 72, he had lived most of his life preparing for this moment, humanity's return to the galactic stage. "Your people are resilient," he replied. "That's something humans and your colonists share." The door opened and Colonel Do-hee entered with the latest reports. Her combat armor had been replaced with a formal uniform, though she still carried herself with a soldier's alertness. "The last Crack's holdouts in the northern mountains have surrendered," she announced. "Nova Centauri is officially secure." Jiwoo smiled with genuine relief. "Thanks to Earth." A young aide approached with a data tablet. "Admiral, urgent message from the Galactic Concord Council." The holographic display in the center of the room activated, showing the official seal of the Concord leadership. The message was formal and stiff. The Council requested an immediate explanation for Earth's military intervention and expressed grave concern about the capabilities displayed by the human fleet. "They seem more worried about us than about the Cracks," Sung-ho observed with a slight smile. "They should be worried," Jiwoo said firmly. "The Cracks have been advancing for years while the Concord ignored our warnings. If you hadn't come..." She left the sentence unfinished. Everyone in the room knew what would have happened. A sharp alert tone interrupted them. The tactical display flickered and expanded, showing multiple star systems across Concord space. Red indicators appeared at the edges of numerous colonies. "What are we seeing?" Jiwoo asked, stepping closer. "Multiple Cracks fleets," Colonel Do-hee explained, her expression grim. "They're attacking everywhere at once." The room fell silent as they watched the simulation play out. Dozens of Cracks battle groups were moving into position around Concord worlds, following the same pattern they had used at Nova Centauri. "They're attacking everywhere at once," Jiwoo whispered in horror. "The Concord defenses won't hold against this." Admiral Sung-ho studied the display carefully, his experienced eyes assessing troop movements and strategic positions. After a long moment, he opened a secure channel to Earth. This is Admiral Kim to Earth Command. The Cracks invasion is larger than we anticipated. It's a coordinated attack across all Concord space. His voice remained calm, but carried undeniable authority. I recommend immediate deployment of the 2nd and 3rd fleets. This isn't just about Nova Centauri anymore. As the call ended, a Concord representative entered the room. Ambassador Teller had arrived 3 days ago to assess the situation. The tall, blue-skinned diplomat had watched Earth's military with obvious unease. "Admiral," Teller said, approaching Sung-ho, "I've been monitoring these developments. My government is confused." The ambassador hesitated. Why would Earth come to our aid? After how the Concord treated humanity, why risk your lives and ships for us? The room grew quiet. Even Jiwoo found herself curious about the answer. The humans had every reason to let the Concord face the Cracks alone. Admiral Sung-ho gestured toward the large windows overlooking the colony. Outside, human soldiers helped alien children plant new trees in a damaged park. Engineers from Earth worked alongside local technicians to restore power systems. Medics treated the injured without asking species or origin. "Because that's what humanity does," the Admiral said simply. "We protect those who cannot protect themselves." The tactical display updated, showing hundreds of new ships moving into formation near Earth, the 2nd and 3rd fleets preparing for deployment. Sleek destroyers, massive carriers, and specialized combat vessels gathered in numbers that made the 1st fleet look small by comparison. "And this," Sung-ho added, nodding toward the display showing Earth's massive armada assembling. "This is just our 1st fleet." Ambassador Teller stared at the display in stunned silence, finally understanding the true strength that humanity had built during its long isolation. In the streets below, unaware of the larger battle to come, humans and aliens continued working. Centuries the galaxy had believed humans had withdrawn in shame after being rejected. In reality, Earth had been watching, waiting, and building. President Lee broke the silence. "And you're recommending intervention?" "I am," Sung-ho replied firmly. "This is exactly why we built the Armada." The holographic display shifted to show Earth's hidden strength, the United Fleet with over 400 warships stationed throughout the solar system. Ships unlike anything the Concord had ever seen, incorporating technologies they had deemed too dangerous. "The colony will fall within days without our help," Sung-ho continued, "and the Cracks will not stop there. Their pattern of expansion is clear." President Lee studied the data before straightening in her chair. "It's time to show the galaxy who we've become. Deploy the 1st fleet." Earth's massive orbital shipyards came alive with activity. For generations, humans had poured their innovative spirit into building a defense force like none other in the galaxy. Now that force was preparing for its first real test. Inside Dock 17, Captain Mina Han walked through the boarding tube onto her destroyer, the Indomitable. At 34, she was one of the youngest ship captains in the fleet, but her tactical brilliance had earned her the position. "Captain on deck," called her first officer as she entered the bridge. "Status report," Mina ordered, settling into her command chair. "All systems ready, Captain. Jump drives at full capacity. Weapons and shields at 100%, reported her tactical officer. "The rest of Strike Group 7 awaits your signal to form up." Through the viewports, Mina could see dozens of other warships powering up. Sleek destroyers like hers, massive carriers holding hundreds of fighter craft, and at the center of the formation, the pride of Earth's fleet, the Super Dreadnought. Horizon's Edge. Her communication officer turned from his station. "Captain, fleet-wide transmission from Admiral Kim." The Admiral's weathered face appeared on the main screen. "All ships of 1st Fleet, this is Admiral Kim. For 2 centuries we have prepared for this day. The galaxy forgot about us. They thought we retreated in shame when the Concord rejected us. Today, we prove them wrong." Mina watched her crew stand, straighter at his words. "Today we answer a call for help that no one else would answer. Today we show the galaxy that humanity never forgot its duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves." The Admiral paused. "Jump coordinates are locked. 1st Fleet, prepare for departure." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Mina felt a surge of pride. Her grandparents had helped design these ships. Her parents had trained for battles that never came. Now her generation would finally reveal Earth's true strength. "Strike Group 7, form up on Indomitable," she ordered. "Prepare jump drives." Across the solar system, 400 ships moved into precise formation. Jump drives hummed as they charged, creating ripples in spacetime that would carry Earth's fleet across the stars. In Central Command, Admiral Sungo gave the final order. "First Fleet, jump." In perfect synchronization, Earth's armada vanished in flashes of blue light, racing to the aid of those who had once rejected them and about to change the galaxy forever. The final shield generator of Nova Centauri died with a low whine that faded into silence. Commander Jiwoo Park felt the difference immediately. The constant hum that had surrounded the colony for weeks was gone. Now nothing stood between her people and the Crack's invasion force. "Shield failure confirmed," reported Major Tejo, his voice flat with exhaustion. "All sectors now exposed." Jiwoo nodded and studied the battle map. They had moved most civilians to the underground bunkers, but those wouldn't withstand a direct assault. Her remaining fighters were setting up the final defensive line around the bunker entrances, a thin barrier of tired soldiers with dwindling ammunition. "How long?" she asked. "Crack's ground forces will reach the northern perimeter in 3 hours," Tejo answered. "They're moving their heavy armor into position now." Jiwoo had seen Crack's heavy armor in action. The massive walking tanks could flatten buildings with single shots. Her fighters had nothing that could stop them. This would be the colony's last day. "Commander, we should move you to the central bunker," suggested Lieutenant Huan. "We need to protect our command structure." "I'll stay with the defense force," Jiwoo said firmly. "I won't hide underground while our people fight." A young communications officer ran into the command post, nearly tripping over debris. "Commander, Lieutenant Hyuk sent me. You need to come to the sensor station immediately." Jiwoo followed him through the damaged corridors of the government building. Inside the sensor station, Lieutenant Hyuk stood wide-eyed before the main display. "What is it?" Jiwoo asked. "Jump signatures," Hyuk said, his voice cracking with excitement. Hundreds of them, appearing at the edge of the system. Jiwoo stared at the screen, watching as dozens, then hundreds of energy signatures bloomed in space. "Conquered reinforcements?" she asked, hardly daring to hope. "Unknown configuration," Hyuk replied. "They don't match any conquered ship designs in our database." Above Nova Centauri, space itself seemed to tear open. Massive ships emerged from the jump points, sleek, angular vessels with unfamiliar markings. At their center moved a dreadnought so large it dwarfed anything Jiwoo had ever seen. Its hull gleamed silver in the light of Nova Centauri's sun. In orbit, Crack's Admiral Drek watched the new arrivals on his command ship's main viewer. "Identify those vessels," he ordered his sensor officer. "Unknown configuration, Admiral," the officer replied. "Primitive designs, possibly some forgotten Concorde reserve fleet." Drek studied the newcomers with contempt. His forces had crushed 3 Concorde defense fleets in the past year. Whatever outdated ships these were, they posed no threat to his modern armada. "Continue as planned," he ordered. "Focus on the ground assault. These newcomers can wait." His tactical officer suddenly shouted, "Energy spike!" The officer never finished his sentence. The new fleet fired without warning or demands. The first salvo from the unknown ships tore through 3 Crack's battlecruisers before their shields could reorient. Advanced energy weapons unlike anything the Cracks had faced sliced through their hulls as if they were made of paper. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Drek felt fear. On the surface, Jiwoo and her officers rushed outside as a strange Isa. Commander Jiwoo Park stood at the command center window, watching as another explosion lit up the night sky. The once beautiful colony of Nova Centauri burned under the relentless attack of the Crack's Imperium. 3 weeks had passed since the first Crack's warships appeared in their system. 3 weeks of death and destruction. "Commander, Eastern Shield generators just failed," reported Lieutenant Huan, his young face streaked with soot. "We have maybe 2 days of power left in the remaining shields." Jiwoo nodded grimly. The command center, once a marvel of alien architecture with its sweeping curves and light-filled spaces, now resembled a battlefield hospital. Injured staff members worked at damaged consoles while emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie, red glow. "Any response to our distress calls?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Nothing, Commander. The Galactic Concord outposts aren't responding," said Juan. "Either they can't hear us, or they won't come," finished Jiwoo. She turned to face the tactical display showing the Crack's fleet positions. Dozens of enemy warships surrounded their small colony world, with more arriving each day. The Nova Centauri colony had been established as a showcase of Concord ideals, a place where 17 different alien species lived and worked together, in harmony. Now it would become their shared grave. "The colonists are asking questions I can't answer," said Major Taiho, entering the command center with his security team report. His uniform was torn and dirty, but he stood tall despite obvious exhaustion. "They want to know if help is coming." Jiwoo looked at the faces of her command staff. Andorians with their blue skin, the insectoid Terex, the crystalline Lumari, and her fellow humans. All of them had placed their faith in the Concord's protection. All of them had been abandoned. Outside, another explosion shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. "General Vrak of the Crack's fleet is broadcasting again," called out communications. "Officer Minji. He's demanding our surrender. Says he'll spare the civilian population if we lay down arms immediately." "He's lying," Taiho said flatly. "We've all seen what happened on Proxima 2. The Cracks don't take prisoners." Jiwoo walked to the main communications array, her mind racing. There was one option they hadn't tried, one frequency they hadn't called. It seemed impossible, but they had nothing left to lose. Officer Minji accessed the Emergency Protocols database. Authorization Park 9847 Alpha. Minji looked confused, but obeyed. "Database accessed, Commander. Find Protocol Earth Lambda 7. It should be in the historical section." The command staff exchanged puzzled glances as Minji searched the database. Earth Lambda 7 was not a standard Concord emergency protocol. "Found it, Commander. It's an old Earth frequency. Hasn't been used in over 200 years. Minji looked up in surprise. "Why would we contact Earth? They're not part of the Concord." Jiwoo remembered her history lessons. Earth had been rejected from joining the Galactic Concord twice, deemed too aggressive and unpredictable by the peaceful coalition. The humans had withdrawn after the second rejection, retreating to their solar system and cutting almost all contact with alien civilizations. "Because everyone else has abandoned us," Jiwoo said simply. "And humans, whatever their faults, never ignored a distress call in the old days." "But Commander," protested Taiho, "Earth has been isolated for centuries. They might not even have starships anymore." Jiwoo accessed her personal files, pulling up an old family record. Her great-grandmother had been among the last diplomats to visit Earth before the planet's isolation. "My ancestor wrote that Earth didn't stop building ships, they just stopped telling anyone about them." She displayed the message template to the command staff. "We send our coordinates, a simple situation report, and this distress signal." The command center fell silent as the staff considered their options. Another explosion rattled the windows. "It can't hurt to try," said Lieutenant Juan finally. "The worst they can do is ignore us like everyone else." Jiwoo nodded to Minji. "Send it." Officer Minji's fingers moved across the console, preparing the ancient protocol. With a deep breath, she transmitted the message into space, aimed at the distant solar system that most of the galaxy had forgotten. "Message sent," she confirmed. Jiwoo stared at the starfield visible through the command center windows. Somewhere out there was the cradle of humanity, a world that the Conquered had dismissed as primitive and dangerous, a world that had every reason to ignore them. "Now we wait," she said quietly, "and hope that Earth remembers its children among the stars." In the heart of Earth's central command, a small red light began to flash on an old console. The monitoring officer almost missed it. The system hadn't activated in decades. But when he realized what was happening, he immediately called his superior. "Admiral Kim, sir, we've received a signal on the Lambda 7 emergency frequency." "Admiral, Sung-Ho Kim was in his office reviewing fleet readiness reports when the call came through. At 72 years old, with steel gray hair and eyes that had witnessed humanity's long isolation, he moved with surprising speed to the monitoring station. "Show me," he ordered. The message appeared on screen. Coordinates for a colony called Nova Centauri, a desperate situation report describing a Krax invasion and a simple plea. "Help us. You're our last hope." "Verify this," Sung-Ho said, his voice steady despite the implications. If real, this would be the first direct communication from Concord space in nearly 2 centuries. Within an hour, Earth's most advanced long-range scanners confirmed the message. Nova Centauri was indeed under attack by a massive Krax fleet. The colony's shields were failing. Thousands of civilians faced certain death. "Call the council," Sung-Ho told his aide. "Emergency session." The United Earth Government Council chamber was silent as Admiral Sung-Ho finished his presentation. The 12 council members and President Jun Lee stared at the holographic display showing Nova Centauri's desperate situation. "The distress call is authentic," Sung-Ho concluded, pointing to the tactical projections. "A Concord colony with human residents is under attack by the Krax Imperium." Defense Minister Myung, a sharp-featured woman with 30 years of military service, leaned forward. "The same Concord that rejected our application twice? That called us too aggressive to join their peaceful coalition?" "The same," Sung-Ho confirmed with a simple nod. The chamber remained quiet as the implications sank in. "For 2, because we want peace, not conquest," Kim replied. "The quantum observer array could have destroyed your entire fleet. Instead, we used it to disable your weapons and bring you to the table." Through the view screen, Day could see the sincerity in the human captain's eyes. It was a strange feeling for a high admiral who had spent his life conquering others to suddenly be on the receiving end of mercy. "Your people's approach to conflict is different from ours," he acknowledged slowly. "Very different," Kim agreed. "The Jaxians see the universe as something to be dominated through force. Humans see it as something to be understood. Both approaches have power, but understanding will always ultimately overcome force." Day considered his options. His fleet was damaged, but not destroyed. They could retreat, regroup, perhaps return, with even more ships. But would that matter against technology that could alter reality itself? "I have spent my life believing that superior firepower was the ultimate answer to any problem," Day said quietly. "Your single ship has forced me to question that belief." "That was our intention," Kim replied. "Not to humiliate or destroy, but to demonstrate that there are other paths, better paths." For the first time in the conversation, Day allowed himself a small smile. "It seems we have much to learn from each other, Captain Kim." "That," Kim said with a nod, "is exactly what we hoped you would say." 1 week after the failed invasion, High Admiral Day stood inside the HSS Defiant. He felt strange wearing no weapons as he walked through the human ship. 4 Jaxian security officers accompanied him, all looking uncomfortable in this alien environment. Captain Kim led the tour personally. They stopped at a large viewing area where screens showed various parts of Earth's solar system. "This is our main observation deck," Kim explained. "From here, we can monitor the quantum field that protects our entire system." Day looked at the displays with newfound respect. The screen showed Earth, its moon, and the other planets, all surrounded by a faint blue glow that his eyes could barely detect. "Your entire solar system exists within a quantum probability field," Kim explained. "Earth was never defenseless. We sent the Defiant not as a weapon, but as a bridge between our civilizations." "A bridge?" Day asked. "You could have destroyed my fleet. That wasn't our goal," Kim said. "We've been watching the Jaxian hegemony expand for decades. We knew eventually you would reach our system." She touched a control panel, bringing up new images on the screens. "Rather than build warships, we focused on understanding quantum reality. We developed the observer array as a defense, yes, but also as a demonstration." Day studied the displays showing the complex technology. He understood perhaps 1/10 of what he was seeing, despite his advanced military training. My people have conquered 12 star systems through superior firepower, he admitted. We never considered that we might encounter a force that renders firepower irrelevant. Kim nodded. Different species follow different paths. Yours mastered conventional weapons and fleet tactics. Ours mastered the underlying nature of reality itself. She turned to face him directly. Different paths of advancement, she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of friendship. Perhaps now we can learn from each other. Day hesitated, only briefly before taking her hand. It felt small in his larger grip, yet this small human and her single ship had changed everything for his people. I would like that, he said. Later that day, Engineer Moon showed Day the heart of the Defiant, the Quantum Observer Array. The machine looked deceptively simple, a series of crystalline structures surrounded by fields of blue energy. How does it work? Day asked. At its most basic level, Moon said. It observes reality with such focus that it changes the probability of what can happen. We can make your weapons extremely unlikely to function properly. We can make your targeting systems almost certain to fail. Day shook his head in wonder. And you use this technology for defense only? Mostly, Moon replied. We've found other applications too. Medical treatment, space travel, energy production. Once you understand that reality is shaped by observation, many things become possible. On the final day of his visit, Day joined. Captain Kim on the bridge, the crew worked quietly around them, each focused on their tasks. Your people are not what we expected, Day admitted. What did you expect? Kim asked. Weakness. Fear. We thought your single ship meant you were desperate. Or foolish. Kim smiled. Instead, you found that we simply had a different kind of strength. Yes, Day said. A strength my people need to understand better. When Day returned to the Jaxian homeworld, he carried not terms of surrender but proposals for alliance. His government officials listened with disbelief as he explained what had happened. One ship defeated our entire fleet? Asked Supreme Commander Gill, his voice heavy with doubt. Not defeated, Day corrected. They could have destroyed us, but chose not to. They showed us that our understanding of power is incomplete. In the months that followed, the Jaxian hegemony struggled to adapt. Their military doctrine, built over centuries, had been fundamentally challenged by a single human ship. Some officers wanted to build more warships. Others suggested stealing the human technology. Day fought against both ideas. More ships won't help against their quantum field, he explained repeatedly, and we can't steal what we don't understand. Slowly, the Jaxian leadership accepted the new reality. Diplomatic talks began. Trade discussions followed. For the first time in their history, the Jaxians considered allies rather than conquests. As relations stabilized, many Jaxians still asked the question that had first confused them. Why did the humans only send one ship? Young Jaxian officers studied the battle recordings with fascination. Engineers examined what little they understood of the quantum technology. Scientists began exploring fields of research they had previously ignored. At a formal dinner celebrating the new alliance between humans and Jaxians, Captain Kim raised her glass to High Admiral Day. To new beginnings, she said. Day raised his glass in return. And to new understandings. Later that evening, looking out at the stars from the observation deck, Day finally understood the lesson Earth had taught his people. The strongest civilizations weren't those with the biggest fleets or the most powerful weapons. They were those who understood the universe itself. The answer to why humans sent just one ship revealed everything about humanity's place in the cosmos. They had moved beyond conquest to understanding, beyond force to wisdom. And now perhaps the Jaxians could begin that journey too. The end.